Oh, yeah, maybe we should start. Yeah, maybe we should start. Yeah, before. That's fine. Hello. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. That is true. That is true. Well, real quick, you're not muted in OBS, right? Your mic? Somebody said that in chat. Okay, people can hear you? Awesome. Somebody said they could.
Either.
Oh.
It's using the wrong mic.
Oh no.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I think so. I think
Oh
so.
my god, I'm so sorry. Um, my product of moving, I had to unplug and replug everything on my computer. So I guess
Gotcha.
OBS decided to use a the microphone that's on my motherboard, like the microphone jack that's on my motherboard, that
Yeah.
is very much absent a microphone. So of course did nothing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very
Oh
very
man.
smooth,
All right, so we got
top
those.
quality.
Yeah, we got those technical difficulties out of the way. So we can jump into this week. So a couple things happened this week. We talked about this first one briefly at the start, or sorry, on last episode. But Twisting Corridors did open this week.
Yep,
That is the endless mode of Torghast, and yeah, it's a lot of powers and triple the floors. That's about
have
what
you
I got
done it
out of it.
yet?
I did the first one, just like the layer 1 version of it, but I have not gone beyond that. I tried to do one today and got to, like, layers or level 6 in layer 2 and was like, "I just don't have another 45 minutes to finish this."
Yeah, yep.
And kinda left, so, yeah.
Yeah, I have yet to start it. I have done no Torghast this week. Or,
Gotcha.
um,
It's
somewhat because I was moving. So like my Tuesday night was packing, my Wednesday night
Mhm.
was moving, my Thursday night I didn't have internet, and my Friday night was raiding. And that brings us to tonight. So I'm gonna go
Tonight,
do
yeah.
some Torghast after this episode. But um,
Yeah. I would say it's fun the first time. You get a ton of powers, which is cool. So there's a lot more opportunity for like different things. I think honestly, like if thinking about it today as like a monk and how you used to do tour guides, which was like if you get corrosive dosage or really if you get corrosive dosage, you basically win, right? Like there's no way to
yeah,
lose. But I think moving forward, the actual play is to get the touch of death cooldown reduction one and
and
then
get a
just
0 second touch.
HP and
Yeah,
just get HP things. And if you get lucky, you can get the touch of death hits 4 targets around it, right? The AoE touch of death.
is it a increased rate at which you get powers, or is it just because there's more floors you get more powers?
Both.
Oh,
So I was at that level 6 or the one I did earlier today at level 6, I had something like 50-ish powers or something ridiculous.
wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an increase in like the drop. At least it
I
feels that way.
I
So
I wonder why they
I
increase.
have
Like,
no
why
idea.
does base Torghast not have that?
I don't I have no idea. But like yeah, by level 6 you seemingly are out of control and then it just gets crazier and crazier from there. So
Yeah,
it does
I'm
scale
looking
pretty
forward to
hard.
trying it. I'm more
Yeah.
looking forward to it on Paladin than Monk, but uh, well, we'll see whether I get lucky and get the Touch of Death AoE power.
Yeah. Yeah, even with the normal touch of death, I think you can make it work. But yeah, it's at least fun the first time. It is very long though, so be ready to spend like probably about an hour in there. just to get through it. So there was like by the 15th or 16th level, I was doing it with a friend. We are just like, we're done. Like, run to the last boss. I'm not killing or looting anything. Like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I
uh,
helped a friend a couple weeks ago get their like 6, 7, and then both eights done.
yep.
And like by the time we were doing the eights, it's like okay, so as soon as we feel comfortable, just like blitzing to the boss, we're just running through everything, killing the boss of the floor, and moving on.
Yeah. 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 It became just it becomes a slog a little bit, which kind of sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. So, but yeah, that is open now. And then one thing to note is that progress is account wide. So, as you unlock layers in twisting, just in twisting corridors, not in normal Torghast,
Yeah,
remember?
this is another like why not in base Torghast kind of moment.
I don't.
Why did
It's
I have to
so
do Torghast on two? Like if I want a level in alt, I have to do 16 Torghast runs the first week to start catching up on Soul Ash.
well. No, you only have to do
Sorry,
9.
9.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
sorry, only 9.
Only 9, but still 9. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm doing that right now, my paladin. It's rough. It is rough. So, but yeah, twisting corridors, count wide progress. It's interesting. Eventually, I might make the climb, but it's a lot of just like a lot of like cosmetic rewards for doing
Yeah.
it. Nothing really power wise. There is a mount at the end of layer 8. So if you do go all the way through, there is a mount that is usable in the mall. But beyond that, it's just a lot of cosmetic stuff. So cool. So then next up is we had a number of hot fixes. So we had hot fixes basically every day this week for something. Honestly, in general, not much to monks. There
There's
was
one
one.
big thing. We spent a
Yeah, there was one.
long time talking about this last week.
Yeah, so on the 5th this week, they did make some nerfs to the Soul Crush ability in the other side. To the
Nerfs. They bug fixed
yeah,
it. We
yeah,
talked last week about the fact that the Soul Crush, like the mechanic, again, it hits the tank with a physical hit, and it does damage as a dot based on how much you took from the initial hit. And basically, the initial hit was scaling with your key level and your affixes, and then the dot was also scaling with the key level and affixes. So you were taking like triple the damage from the dot that you actually took from the damage you took.
right.
So they fixed that, which means that the other side is now actually practically doable on a brewmaster. Hooray!
Yep.
Um, Muazala is no longer the hardest boss in the instance. That is probably the stupid broker dude.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Not bad. Not
it's
bad. Yeah.
it's a
So
very good hotfix.
nice. Yeah, it'll help be helpful. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Yeah, for tanks. And they did basically make hot fixes. Just looking at the list here, essentially every day this week.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
you
actually
know,
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th,
7th.
and then we have
Yeah.
hot fixes coming on Tuesday.
Yeah, on the 12th, yeah. So the interesting thing about the 12th ones is they do contain some level of tuning to classes. So not again monk ones, but or actually there
Oh,
are
there
some
are
monk
monk
ones in that
ones.
one. Yeah, sorry. So for the monk side of things, they are increasing your damage with a two-hander by 2%. So for both Windwalker and Brewmaster, if you
I
equip a
have
two-hander,
questions about that one. So
yeah.
right now, Windwalker and Brewmaster both have this aura that increases your ability damage while dual wielding by 2%.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Um, wondering if they just turned that off, which is not exactly a 2% increase.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I guess probably they're just evening that out and like adding an aura that makes it an extra 2% ability damage for a two-handed weapon. Because right now the
Hmm.
situation is you will drop actually large amounts of eye levels to uh, dual wield in many situations because of the power of adding a second enchant and having the one-handed weapons like Pox Storm that have even relatively minor like free proc effects on them.
Right.
But yeah, it's we were talking about this. I've answered this question so many times in questions now. This does not mean that two-handed is now the best. I
Yeah.
can't speak to Windwalker, but for Brewmaster, two-handed is still not the best. What this means is it's going to slightly reduce the situations in which you will drop eye level on your weapon.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes sense. that makes sense. So yeah, so that seems like somewhat of a slightly good change. There was also some changes to like Death Knights and Blood and Frost. Um, Frost got a similar buff that you do 2% more damage if you have a two-hander equipped. Seems like that's their metric to balance the one or two one-handers versus one two-hander. Frost Mages got a huge buff in terms of 9% damage,
9%.
which is crazy. And then Assassination Rogues also got a very large buff in
Didn't
terms
they
of
get
doing 8%.
8% or something?
Yeah, 8% more damage for them. So these are all a
Wild.
part of yeah, these are all a part of the Tuesday half fixes. So you assume these go in with the maintenance timing. So Tuesday in the US, sorry, and then of course Wednesday EU maintenance wise. Um, so yeah, so it seems like they're starting to get into class tuning fixes and things like that. So yeah. Um, and then again, yeah, there was tons of other hotfix. I expect more this week as teams get back in, get to play a little bit more. So yeah. And the only other final thing this week was they did start to ban accounts for advertising. So a lot of people, when you start seeing advertising, particularly in the LFG, I believe this is what it's targeting. Advertising like sale runs and things like that, where if you go to search for a key to pug, maybe you see one key and six adverts. So if you do that, you will be banned for advertising essentially services outside of World of Warcraft. This was something they actually made the updates to at the start of the year, and then immediately started banning for it. So there was a couple anecdotal stories about individuals losing large accounts with large amounts of gold on them because they use them as sort of their advertiser accounts, and
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that was a change that came in, um, and they're just banning off the bat. So they're starting to enforce that right away. Not really waiting, doing warnings or anything like that. Just an immediate like, hey, you advertised, we've caught you, you get banned now. Congratulations. So, um,
Yeah, I read it at the time because our guild does sales and wanted to make sure we weren't going to lose raiders accounts to
mhm.
advertising in trade chat. Um and I want to say there's some element of this that applies to trade chat as well, but I didn't actually reread this post before starting the
Mhm.
podcast. So, don't quote me on that. But as a general rule, like I would a lot of the advertising even in trade chat, I would rather not be there.
Yeah.
It's not so bad on my server because my server is really small, so nobody advertises on it except for us occasionally. Um, but on something like Illidan, Area 52, there's a lot of ads.
Yeah. I mean, even Mal'Ganis, where I play, like, I don't, if I'm in Orgos, or sorry, Orgrimmar or one of the major cities, trade chat is just generally a mess. Like, there's stuff everywhere. It's super annoying to kind of um, find anything or talk to people. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
my server trade chat is mostly looking for rank 4 craft to insert leather piece here, have mats, will tip.
yeah. I don't have that problem. All the leather gear for me is like maybe the rank fours are like down to like 55, 45,000 depending on the piece. So it's easy.
I sold a rank 1.
That's ridiculous. I think they're literally worth this. They're like 8 or 10K now on Mal'Ganis. So
Most of them are.
uh,
Just like one random slot.
nice. Nice. But yeah, so advertising, be careful. It seems like it's targeting accounts specifically created to just advertise. But yeah, it's looks like Blizzard's gonna crack down on that a little bit. Um, so cool. That's basically it that happened last week. I don't know if there's anything else you had on your list of stuff you wanted to bring up, Emerson.
We did actually have one more thing that I wanted to touch on. Breaches. I don't know if it's
Oh
right.
yeah.
Breaches talk with Limit and Echo leadership happened yesterday.
Oh, that's right. I did catch a little bit of that. Yeah.
That was super cool. They went into details on comp, on strategy development, on the race, on global release. They went in like this is like a 4 hour long
Yeah.
talk
There's
that
a
they
lot
had.
there.
They covered a lot of ground. Um, and if you are rating and like are really like into it, you enjoy that, it's definitely worth like treating it as like an extended podcast and putting it on, listening to it while you're doing your WoW chores, or I don't know if you have a job that lets you do that, something like that, and just listening to it
Yeah. There's a
because
couple of really good points I think that both sides made. I don't know if you caught, they did it was interesting to see them talk about comp stuff. So what they thought would be important and what, where they thought, maybe Echo made some better decisions than Limit and where Echo thought Limit made better decisions. So that was an interesting point. The whole like global release stuff is none of them really made good points about it. Like they made the points that they made about like what happens around not having a global release were really interesting, right? So they talked a little bit about like Echo not
yeah,
streaming their side in Athris, progression. And they talked a little bit about like the whole idea of like sometimes you don't want to stream when you get to a boss right before you go to bed because that gives the other team who are about to wake up and should kill the previous boss that you might be one boss ahead of, and you don't want to give them any sort of um extra information like counsel, right?
yeah,
That limited. So it was interesting to hear that. I think it's sort of, but the rest of the reasoning why and like what actually happens and how the logistics of it work, they just, other than like, hey, release it all at the same time, like I don't know if they had any really like great points about it. So
yeah.
um because there's a to me there's a
They did
lot that
touch a
goes
little
in.
bit on like, they didn't spend a lot of time on this, but somebody did bring up like, if you do a global release of the raid, someone in the not world first community is getting screwed because of timing. No.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it opens weirdly and then like resets will happen at different times because you can't just do a single reset global release. Like you have to have
Yeah.
the
Like what?
heroics and like the resets move a couple weeks before that sort of synced too. So yeah, I don't know if it'll work, but no, it definitely was really interesting. It's really interesting too. They talked a little about like in-game mentality, right? Where like Limit's very much a much more laid back guild in
Yeah.
terms of like communications and like character and things like that. Echo is very a little bit more serious. Um, sort of like just different leadership styles. It's interesting to hear too, like Limit talk about, particularly Max talk about like they just want good players, even if that player only plays a single class, which is very different mentality than like you'd think about at that level. Because they have, I guess, in Limit players that only play one class, and
I
like
mean,
if their class is
I think
good,
that makes more sense knowing that they have a larger roster. I don't know how
yeah,
many people they have on their roster, but I do know that they have more than, a typical like World 3 guild,
yeah, yeah,
because people don't have the expectation that they're going to be in on every boss.
exactly, yeah, exactly, exactly. So no, it was a really good talk. So yeah, very similar. Yeah, very good. And sort of you could do that one, and you can also do the one that Max did, I guess, on Christmas Day, where he like reviewed their strats, like limit strats and progression on each boss. So yeah, sorry, I didn't put that in the notes. I forgot about that. I only listened to like an hour of it, so I'll have to finish that up tomorrow. Um, so cool. I think
Gearing
that
then.
yeah, gearing then our gearing strategies discussion topic point.
Yes.
Um, so I think we put this. I kind of put this together in a way to sort of talk about how what the different, I guess, gearing strategies or ways to gear are in the game today, and then go through sort of our thoughts on what we think is the best way to do it for a brand new character. So we'll kind of go through. There's like probably 3 or 4 different ways you can gear up your character, right?
Yeah.
Depending on your goal, or really just we'll talk about in general how to gear up, right? And then sort of the second half or the second part, will end up talking a little bit about how you take a fresh 60 character. I was going to say 120 by the way, a fresh 60 character just leveled, and like like what our point of view would be or what we would do to get that character geared and ready to say do, Mythic Plus raids, that sort of heroic like M10s, Mythic Plus 10s, or even like the 18 to 2000 bracket of like RBGs. Like what would that? How would we get there from a kind of a fresh character? So yeah, so I think the first topic is really sort of more PvE focused, right?
Yeah.
So like PV is, I think, has been pretty standard for a fairly long time, right? Like pretty much since the beginning of the game in terms of like the step by step way you get gear.
Yeah, okay. That's as
You know
far
what
as
I
there
mean?
being like a ladder of gearing, like one into another. That's been a fairly constant thing, because you can look even back at vanilla, and you went into what you went in your dungeons, and you went into Stratholme, and you went into Ubers, and then you went into MC, and then you went from there. Like the raids were one into the next, functioning like
Right.
our difficulties do now, as stepping stones from one to the next. And so that's PVE still behaves very much like that, even though the exact form that we have now
It's like
is not something that really came into existence until Legion, I would argue, because of the introduction of Myth Plus.
right, yeah, right, yeah. So I mean, like you basically start kind of as like a fresh 60. You do um like some of your heroic, really potentially normals, right? Depending on your gear. But like start like your normal 5-man dungeons, work your way into heroics. From heroics, you can do mythic zeros, and then once they had opened, you could start to do mythic plus, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Especially now, though, with the level of gear that people are running around with, it's not that difficult to get into Mythic Zero pugs, even if you aren't over gearing hero.
right, yeah. Yeah. No, that's an easy one. And even like low level mythic keys, a lot of times you can take you can get into those pretty easy, like the twos, the threes, and the fours in terms of like to
Yeah.
picking up gear, right? Um,
That is something that you do need to be careful of because sometimes you'll be like, oh, what the hell? I'll try, and you put yourself in the queue for a key, and they just like accept you,
yeah,
and then it's like they're just accepting the first four people that show up, and
it's gonna be a rough go.
those are a disaster.
Yeah,
Those are a disaster. If that's what it looks like, then you should just bail and go something else. It'll be a better use of the next 45 minutes of your life.
yeah, yeah. Those are a little bit more, yeah, a little bit scarier, but yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the typical like PV sort of progression, right? It's starting at those difficulties, working right through them. The biggest like some of the issue there is that it's still a personal loot, right?
Yeah,
But you're sort of at the mercy of the RNG from the particular bosses you're killing and the loot you can get, right? So, you can do, full M0 clears and you can be 184, get lucky you get a slot on each one that you need as you clear each one of those. Or you can get unlucky and get like multiple pieces in the same slot,
yeah.
right?
I had that
Um,
happen with my monk when we were doing our Mythic Zeros the first weeks of the expansion, and did M0 sweeps and ended up with like a load of rings and chests, and it's like, hooray! I'm still not even out gearing heroics after having cleared all of the mythic dungeons.
yeah. Yeah, and I of course, not of course, but I had the opposite experience where I think I left the first week of Mythic Zero with like two pieces that weren't 184
Yeah,
at the time.
like my paladin was in even worse shape because I did it in just like a cloth stack, so I could get nothing except for rings and cloaks basically from
Gotcha.
my party members, and I don't even think my paladin could queue for heroics after that mythic zero sweep.
That's awesome. That's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah, so I think that's the potentially one of the biggest issues with that is just like you're sort of stuck. If you don't get the drops, you're not going to get the gear, and you're essentially going to potentially waste your time. Not waste your time, but you waste sort of the lockout, particularly if you're doing mythic zeros, right? Heroics, you can sort of spam out. Um, it's just a time thing, but it's sort of a very much an RNG experience. The good thing though about this is that you have access to a larger number of certain slots, right? So trinkets, I think, are the big one, right? You have access to a larger variety of trinkets through sort of the 5-man dungeons, right? The mythic zeros and things like that. So you'll be able to potentially pick up something that can be very strong, right? There are certain trinkets today that if you can get them high enough eye level will compete with Castle Nathria level trinkets, right? Just in terms
Yeah.
of like their power coming out of like the 5-man dungeon. So that's one area or one sort of gear slot that benefits from this if you can get the drops though. But I mean, definitely I think trinkets are, if we as we talk about the other sort of gearing places you can pick up gear, like trinkets end up being probably the one area that are the strongest coming out of 5-mans, at least for healers. I really don't know much about DPS and tanks, but I mean, my assumption is,
I
there's
would say for DPS it's up there. There are a couple
yeah,
of good raid trinkets for DPS, but
hmm
there's a lot of duds. There's a lot of like, look at this cool trinket design, like navel gazy kind of things, like the dancing trinket from
Yeah,
Council. Um, while there are just some very solid stat sticks from Mythic Plus that people actually want. Um,
gotcha.
and for tanks, I mean, tanks basically just use DPS trinkets right now, with the
Yeah,
exception of one to two, like not counting last expansion trinkets, because you can still totally wear Bloodthirsty Urchin and uh and Lingering Psychic Shell and be good. Like I still have them in my bags. They are very good. So you know, forgetting about going and farming Mythic Lady Ashvane, um, you want the Hakar trinket from the other side. Conveniently,
gotcha.
that
Yeah,
just got hotfixed, so now it's way more doable at a higher level for brewmasters. Hooray! Go and more reasonably farm that trinket.
yeah, get in
Um,
there.
and then uh, the Kael'thas trinket from the raid is actually very
Oh, cool.
well. I don't know what very good. Sorry, it's very good in the kind of keys where you expect to sometimes just die. Like sometimes you're just going to die. Uh,
Gotcha.
so if you're pushing bigger keys, it's very good. I would personally wear it even around like the 13, 14 level, just because
Hmm.
there's a lot of stuff where like someone misses a kick and oops, I'm dead, and it's the kind of trinket that solves that problem. And most of the other trinkets in the game right now kind of suck for
Yeah,
tanks. So it's not like you're
sort of
giving
a
up a huge amount to put on this cheat death trinket.
gotcha. Sort of like the standard. I feel like too is that uh tank trinkets always sort of there's always like maybe one a tier, and the
I don't
remainder
know what
are
they're doing, man.
yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing either.
Yeah, it's
But
just yeah, it's funny.
one day they'll make a bunch of good tank trinkets, and I don't know what I'm gonna do on that. I actually have to write a trinket guide. I guess is what I'm gonna have to do on that day.
I have to just be like sim the one with the highest DPS because the defensive value means zero.
I mean, right now, if we put up a trinket guide, I would actually probably want to like leave the Discord because of how many pings I would get about why does the trinket guide say to farm Mythic Lady Ashvane?
Exactly. Nice.
Yep.
Oh man, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole like 5-man dungeon thing is just it's a lot of RNG. It's a lot of like potentially getting items and slots you don't need it, but there are trinkets there. And there's a plethora of like ring slots you can pick up, like weapons are sort of in multiple dungeons. So I think the one, while it is a ton of RNG, there is a large number of gear pieces you can pick up across
Yeah.
multiple dungeon runs, right? So you're not like as we talk about some of these other things, like it's not that you stuck if like you kill a specific boss or kill a specific boss, you never like there's no other weapon chances that week, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of out of chances until reset, but and that's not the case in sort of the
It's
mythic
also
plus zero area.
one of the most forgiving lines on the Great Vault. Um,
Right.
so the Great Vault for Mythic Plus goes one slot for completing a dungeon, one
Hmm.
singular Mythic Plus. Then a second slot for doing 4, and a third slot for doing 10. And the way it works is that first slot always uses your highest key. So if you do 114, you get max eye level loot with Great Vault in that slot always.
Right.
If you do 4 14s, or like, two 14s, two 13s, or whatever, it's going to take your top 4 runs. It's going to use that to determine the eye level of that slot. And then that last slot's, for most of us, even if you get 10 keys in, there's usually going to be a couple baby keys in there. It's not going to be great eye level, but maybe you get lucky and get something that's good, even if it is low eye level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that one, yeah, the Great Vault there is like you're right. It's pretty forgiving in terms of like the first two slots are very easy to get, I think. And very easy to get at a a
A
high item
good eye
level.
level, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For what you're looking for. So no, yeah. So I mean, I think yeah, this one I didn't really think about the Great Vault angle on this one, but yeah, it definitely is an easy way to get gear early. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of like giving yourself two slots there.
Personally, like, well, I guess we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but personally, I think the Great Ball is the only saving grace of Mythic Plus loot. It's the only reason I even think about
Yeah.
going into Mythic here right
So
now.
I'll be honest with you. I have not done any keys this week, and I
I
don't know
haven't
if I'm
either.
going to.
Partially again because moving, but also
Yeah.
partially because no. I'm not spending
I
40 minutes in the key to get
right.
potentially one piece of loot for the entire group.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
One piece of sub heroic eye level loot at that.
Yeah. It's tough to get in there right now, gear wise. Um so cool. So that's I think the sorry. That's sort of like the 5-man area. Then you also have the ability for to pick up gear in raids, right? So, raid wise, there's a lot of like raid wise suffers from some of the similar issues that 5-man dungeons do in the terms of like the RNG from a looting perspective. You're not always guaranteed a piece. Um, but with larger number of players in the instance with you, there is a better chance of potentially trading loot. So you
Yeah.
can pick up some pieces that way, which is always a good thing, although maybe not always.
I mean,
But
sometimes you get lucky and someone trades you a weapon. Sometimes you get unlucky and, you know, six people all get the exact same ring and it doesn't matter.
yeah, who gets what? Yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of the rating angle. Again, I think this comes with sort of we didn't really talk about this in like the dungeon aspect of things, but like the logistics of putting this together as like a solo player or just as an individual,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Raids are much
even
harder to do as a solo player.
yeah, yeah. So it's a more difficult way to do gearing. I think you and I would say that it's probably the most fun content in the game, so you should definitely try and push to do it. Uh
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut because
yeah, okay,
I don't
maybe
want us to
not.
go off on a
Maybe I'm
tangent.
speaking for you, but
I would say that it in a like a dedicated raid group, I would agree. Pugging it
yeah.
is hell. I hate
Yeah,
it.
that's fair. That's fair.
But
But yeah, but I mean, with LFR open and things like that, like there is now
what eye level does
so
LFR drop?
187, I
So it's
believe.
better than doing Mythic Zeros at the
Correct.
expense
Yeah.
of sometimes you're going to get two Bloodlusts on Council of Blood.
Yes.
There was someone streaming earlier today. Um, it was a very interesting stream. I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but they were doing LFR and they got lusted on pull and they lusted again on Council of Blood
so so
on
we did
LFR.
this cool thing. I was in LFR earlier on my paladin. I'll tell a quick aside story. We did this interesting thing on council where we got one boss to 50%, and then we got another boss to 50%. Uh, I guess almost to 50%. They were at 52, and then we had killed the first boss. But yeah, it was and then
Does
we did
their
it
health
again.
reset on LFR?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Back to 100. Then we did it again on the next because that was on the first like one of the three bosses after we killed it. And then with only two bosses up, we did a very similar split TPS strategy. It was not fun. I will tell you. Also Zymock still does mind controls. However, you
Oh
don't
yeah.
kill the person. The person doesn't die at the end, which I think is good. So if
They
they get
don't die
mind
on
control,
heroic either.
oh, they don't. Is
No,
that? Oh, I didn't realize. I
that's a
thought.
mythic mechanic.
Oh, my bad.
On
I thought
heroic,
everybody
they come
died.
out at like 20. You have to do like 80% of their HP and damage or something
Gotcha.
like
Oh,
that.
I thought they just died.
Now on
Sorry. So
mythic,
that
they just die.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Um, and there's still the portals on Zymock on LFR,
good,
which
good.
is
It
fun.
would
It's
not be a
fun.
boss without the portals.
Yeah, no, it's great when they drop them right on top of each other. That's I saw that strat. I saw the strat where they drop them like next to each other at an angle. What was the other? I saw one strat where they ran it to the tank, and the tank got ported. Uh,
Oh
and then
man.
then then we had some really good tanks where they did the strat where like you get the debuff and you just don't move. You just stay in the raid so that you're closer for healing, I guess was their idea. I don't
Hmm.
maybe so
I
yeah,
mean,
LFR
tanks are
was a
healer mechanics, right? So
well exactly. So it was no LFR was fun. But sorry, off topic. But yeah, you have LFR to gain some things. Actually, I don't know if LFR affects the Great Vault. I should
no,
check that.
I don't think it does.
It doesn't. Oh,
I
darn
don't
it.
think queued content. I mean, I guess technically PvP is queued, but like, uh, anything you can queue for solo, I'm pretty sure has no bearing on Great Vault.
Great Vault. Okay.
Um, I would need to double check. Like arena
I'll check as
skirmishes
we're
don't,
talking
random
here.
battlegrounds don't. You have to do rated arenas or rated battlegrounds in order to
Hmm.
get stuff for your Great Vault, which
Okay.
you can find just random people in LFG to do them with, but you can't just like solo queue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Um, So yeah, so I think that's I mean, raid wise, I think it's very similar, like we said, to to five mans in that the only difference is there's more people. So there's potentially a better chance of trading loot, but you you're still with the RNG around, actually getting loot to drop for you. I think the other thing too with raids that is an issue in terms of gearing is that you only have one shot at a boss a week, essentially. So like if you kill the boss that drops like say the gloves you want, he does not drop the gloves,
Sucks to be
you do
you.
not get gloves. You do not get gloves
This
that
is
week.
even worse, in my opinion, with something like a weapon or a trinket. Because,
Yeah.
like, there are other gloves in the world,
Yep.
but weapons, there's usually only one that
Right.
you can get.
Exactly.
And trinkets, only the one boss drops that one trinket. There's nowhere else you can get it. Good luck next week.
Right. Yeah. So that's the rough part with LFR. LFR rating is that you don't do it. Also, just to confirm, Emerson, the Great Vault is affected by LFR. So my
Really?
my paladin is 6 of 7 right now, and I will get a 200 piece next week.
Huh.
At least one.
Wow.
Yeah. So so that's it.
Good
I
to
guess that's
know.
a
I'm still never
yeah.
doing LFR. Never
No, no,
doing it.
no. It's
But
only 200 eye level, by the way. So
yeah. Um,
uh,
yeah. I mean, technically the paladin that I'm playing in Mythic Kael'thas could use some LFR pieces.
nice.
Um, I could get things that would be upgrades. I'm not going to do it, but I could get things.
Yeah. That is well that's there, so it's an option. But yeah, rating I think is sort of just another tier above, five mans, just with more people essentially, and potentially a couple more cons.
I,
It doesn't have the sorry.
it's is in terms of loot acquisition, the rate at which you get loot. I think it's slightly higher than Mythic Plus,
Mhm.
unless you have a group that can reliably time. Like,
Yeah,
you have that kind of group, then Mythic Plus is better. Time. Don't, then rating is better.
yeah,
Rating is a lot better when you include BOE farming.
that is true. That is true. Which we got lucky last week.
Oh man, we
We
got three of the same ring last night from Trash.
we got 11 pieces within the first five bosses worth of trash. The
That's
trash. So
insane.
the trash on the way to Kale dropped something like every other trash pack had a
I
BOE in it.
want you to recognize the insanity of that, by the way. You got four bosses worth of trash.
It was ridiculous. Literally, like every time we killed a pack, someone would be like another BOE. And granted, I think there was a lot of the same thing, but
Yeah.
it was just like it was ridiculous. Like every somebody had died and we were running back because we had at that point started to clear all the trash, and they were like randomly looted. Like, oh, I got another one. Like on the rep. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like
I
it was ridiculous.
it's actually it blows my mind. Like several of the actual like literal best in slot pieces you can get as Brewmaster come trash
Yeah,
because they're crit verse pieces. And
yeah. I should check if we got any leather. Shit.
it blows my mind. I lost every roll.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's never good. Um, but yeah, I guess that is one thing. The BOEs that do come from trash are in there too.
Um
So,
yeah.
but yeah, we got a ton last week. That was fun. It's funny you bring that up. I forgot. It's like BOE alley. Um, so cool. And then I think the one of the final ways, I guess, from a gear up perspective, is gearing up. Excuse me, through PvP, which is another avenue, which is I think we're going to talk very highly of it, but it's a
Yeah.
very consistent avenue, right? So
Yes.
the way that PvP gearing works is essentially you do a any sort of PV activity. I mean, it's basically you get a currency, and you use that currency to buy items, right? And we'll keep it simple. There's one currency. Well, there's actually two. Sorry, keep it simple. There's two currencies. One is harder to get than the other, but the easier to get one you get from essentially doing anything PV related. You could queue up a random battleground as a solo player. You can queue up arena skirmishes. You can do arenas from a rated arena perspective. You can do rated BGs. All these activities give you honor. That honor currency is used to buy gear. Um, and essentially, you can target whatever. slots you want. So the idea with that is you have a very consistent amount of honor you'll get. If you win, you get more. If you lose, you get less. But essentially, you can sort of plan out your gearing strategy in terms of like what pieces do I need where? When's my next upgrade going to be? Very, very consistent. And of course, there's a second currency in terms of conquest, which allows you to buy sort of higher item level pieces, essentially pieces that will scale higher because
Yeah.
they're different
The
sorry.
with like regardless of your rating in PvP, you can use conquest to buy eye level 200 pieces, which is like that is around normal eye level. That's normal
Yeah.
rating eye level. Um, which already makes it very good actually with the difficulty of acquiring gear this expansion. Just being able to buy a 200 piece, like if you're a primary PvE player like me, being able to just like go, oh, my cloak is still eye level 170. Let me go and buy a cloak from the vendor, eye level 200. Like it's not going to be my bis. It's not going to be like irreplaceable. I'm not hitting 2400 and getting a 226 or whatever, 233
Yep.
cloak. Um, but I am going to use that 200 cloak for a while, or 207, 213, whatever you upgrade it to with higher rating.
Hmm.
Um, it's yeah, I very much like the PVE or the PvP gearing system.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the nice part about it in terms of just I mean, number one, being able to target's great, but I think the nice part about it is that the currency comes from anything you do in that realm, right? So it doesn't matter if you only want to do arenas, you can only do arenas and get honor, get conquest, and like eventually buy your pieces. If you like more of like the larger group stuff, you can do rated battlegrounds or BGs, right? And get honor and conquest and things like that way. So it's flexible like inside of the activity, um, and it's also working towards the same way where you don't have to like switch, right? You don't have to be like, well, all of like this certain piece comes from arenas, so I have to do arenas up to this level, and then I need to pivot and say like, all right, well, but if I really want the trinket only comes from BGs.
Yeah, and that's
It's it's
I
it's
mean
very nice.
that is very nice. It's somewhat of a problem with PvE gearing, where like, okay, if I am working on my monk and I want the Hakar trinket, I have to go and do that many times as I can. That is
Hmm.
basically up to a 15, um, to try and get it at eye level 210.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Um, or just hope to like get it from the massive loot pool in the Great Vault. Um, and it's very difficult to do that. But then if I need like a trinket from Raid and a trinket from Mythic Plus, I can do both.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, there is somewhat of a nicety around that. I think the other piece, right, is you can't just walk in and get the best gear from PvP just if you farm enough currency, right?
Yeah,
There is a rating limit, so you have to get to certain ratings to unlock higher item level unlocks, right? So like you don't walk in and automatically, I think you mentioned this, like you don't just get like 233 gear. You have to get to rating like
yeah.
two
There's a
twenty four
bunch of
hundred, right?
pictures floating around of people that are like, 230, like 226 equipped from PvP only, and you look at them and they're like multi-season gladiators that already hit
Yeah.
2800 and happened to get really lucky with the vault and got a different piece from their great vault that they hadn't already purchased every single week. And so they were
Right.
fully geared, 5 weeks into the season. And it's like, great, if you too are a multi season gladiator, then you
Hmm.
as well can be 226 geared, which, in fairness, that is faster than you can get geared through Raid,
Right.
by a lot. Uh, well,
Right,
not
but
counting
it's
not
but
counting
the
BOEs, but
yeah. But that's also like a world that's like a top world player doing that, right?
well, like,
Similarly, I
okay,
bet you if you
limit
like in
players could not have physically reached that eye level from doing the raid.
that's true. That's fair.
Like, that's just not possible with the amount of loot. Maybe if you put every single BOE on, maybe,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's the rate. There is something to the complaint about the rate of acquisition there.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a problem. Like, These people are multi-season glads. Like, let them have their loot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's the nice part about the PvP piece, right? Is it's very there's a known progression, right? Like you will do enough of something to get a currency to buy the next item. You will then know like, well, I need 400 more honor to upgrade it to the next item level sets to go from like level 1 to level 2, which I guess is like 6 item level. So it's very like easy to see, easy to structure. You can look at your gear and basically math out or like spreadsheet out, all right, I'm upgrading this piece, this piece, this piece. This is how much honor I need.
Yeah,
So it's very easy to sort of see that. The issue with it is that you don't have a chance to optimize around certain stats or around
yeah.
trinkets, right? So like the trinkets
You
are
have very
very
little.
static,
It's
you know.
it's more consistent, fewer options. PvE is
Exactly.
more options, less consistent. And
Yeah.
I'm the way I'm saying that makes it seem like I think they're equivalent, and they are not.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about this more later, but they're not even.
No. No. So I mean uh it's very much a very consistent way to do those sort of upgrades. And yeah, I mean as long as the it doesn't the a lot of times early on in expansion stats mean a lot less than just raw item level, right? And being able to get higher item level pieces on a consistent basis will always be better than like trying to find them out in the world or like
Yeah,
trying to get lucky and get drops, right? So I
yeah,
think that's the biggest thing, that the biggest pro for PvP is that it's just a grind it out, do your RBGs. It may take you a couple hours, but you can put on like 30 to 40 item level in a single night of playing, the game,
yeah.
which is not something that can be said for running mythic zeros or even like mythic plus, right? Like that's
Not even
not,
close. I did a
yeah.
bunch of keys. I did 10. I did my 10 keys week on my paladin to get all the vault fully unlocked.
Mhm.
And got nothing. It's a trash alt. I wasn't doing a lot of them with like full guild groups that could blast 12s and whatever to get the two pieces at the end. So we were getting one piece at the end of a 40 or 45-minute key. And if
Yeah.
that piece goes to the worst part is when that piece goes to a warlock or something, and they're the only cloth wearer in the group, and they go, I can't use this. Anybody
Yeah.
want it? And then they go, oh, I'm the only cloth wearer. I can't. I'm
Yeah.
not even an enchanter. I guess I just vendor this.
Yeah,
Like it
exactly.
feels
They take
so
control.
bad. Like and you're like, yay, 45 minutes. I got 35 anima.
I got nothing. Yeah, that's the problem with that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I mean, other than I think that's it on PvP. Or really, like the only other gearing sort of thing that I thought about as we were talking about, we talked about sort of the more um like group based things of like doing raids, doing dungeons, or doing PvP stuff. I mean, there is a way to gear to funnel some gear going through like your class campaign too, which I think we'll
Yeah,
talk about a little bit. But you know, early on that was not very good because you were doing your campaign sort of two quests at a time, and by the second week, if you had done all your mythic zeros, you outgeared
you
anything
outgeared it
coming out of
all.
the
Yeah,
campaign. No matter how unlucky you were, you would have probably got enough gear that like
it would have been very difficult to get so unlucky that you would wear like I did wear one of the pieces for a while on my monk because it just happened to be in a slot that I hadn't gotten yet in any
right,
capacity. Like I was still wearing a BFA piece, and so
yeah,
in that case, of course I wore it, but I wore it for a grand total of like 2 days, and then I got something better.
yeah. Yeah, and that is a potential option, but, like, you'll quickly outpace that stuff.
Even
Although don't although
if
don't get rid of it because you can upgrade it.
you
You can
can't
upgrade
upgrade it
it
with anima, so you got to
with
choose Portal to Orbos, upgraded gear.
True, it's a tough one.
Got
It's
to
a tough one.
choose, and I know where I stand, and it's not the gear.
I need, like,
Gear is
600
temporary.
anima.
Portals are forever.
Yeah, I need, like, 600 anima for my portal, so, I'm closing in. But, yeah, so that is a potential other option, so, um
Yeah, it's. I would say right now it's actually fine if you are like leveling a new character and you just blast through your Covenant campaign. You can get up to like I don't know if you can quite get to Mythic Zero eye level from, but you can get them in almost every slot.
Yeah.
So it makes it a really, really good way to like just get that quick eye level so you can immediately start doing those Mythic Zeros and low level Mythic Plus keys that are, if you're pugging them as a solo player, it's going to be very hard to get into those groups as a like 140 freshly dinged level 60.
Yeah.
Um, so blasting your Covenant campaign can actually be a good way to get that gear. You do have to invest anima in upgrading those pieces. Aside from the like mission board, none
Yeah.
of your anima actually contributes to like character power. It's all stuff that like you'll eventually get anyway. It's cosmetic stuff. I'm actually skipping a lot of it on my characters. So you don't
Yeah.
need anima for anything else. So if you just want to get into like doing keys and stuff, like go like upgrade your
Yeah.
campaign gear.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean I think that's it just in terms of like ways you can acquire gear. I mean, there's also crafted gear, but I mean that's like one piece. You can buy that from the auction house. Generally speaking, um
Yeah,
there's like
if you're
maybe
made of
one
gold,
item. What?
but not even made of gold. If you have about well, depending on your server, if you have around half a mil to a mil to spend, you can get 4 pieces of 226 gear. That's the fastest way to gear up right now is to buy
That's
BOEs.
true. That's true. But we'll
Um,
talk about actually playing the game versus just buying your way through it.
yeah, if you wanna dump what is that $115 into the game, you can buy yourself some
Yeah.
BOEs.
Yeah. But maybe we like to play it. So yeah, so I think the next part here was just to sort of go through our thoughts on like if you had a low level, like level, or sorry, not a low level, but a freshly leveled character, like what would our advice be to gain gear as quickly as possible, like push yourself into like, hey, I want to do mythic zeros at like a plus 10 level, like I talked about, do like heroic raids or be like a mid 2000 or like a
Um,
2000 ish level PvPer, right?
yeah, so for I'm kind of approaching this from the okay, let's hypothetically we're getting to a boss. Or I know it's
Yep.
coming up, and I need to gear an alt for it ASAP. Like
Okay. We can do it that way too. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it is, blood decay is nuts on this. I need to finish my blood decay. How am I gearing it up? Um,
Gotcha.
and the answer for that is basically hit 60, do my mythic zero sweep, get that 184 gear because the drop rate, even though the item level is lower than what you get from mythic plus, the
Hmm.
drop rate is so much higher because you get pieces from every single boss in the instance.
Yeah.
You maybe you in particular won't get them, but there's 2 pieces per boss in the instance. So the shortest instance, you're getting 6 pieces for your instead of 1 to 2 from a.
Yeah. No, it's definitely better. Yeah.
Um, and then from there, depending on how lucky I've gotten, either going and doing campaign to get a couple of slots. Like if I've gotten really unlucky, I'll go do a campaign, get a little bit more eye level, and then just like straight into PvP, like straight into it.
Yeah.
I'm not even. I'm like fuck. I'm not doing keys. Who wants to do keys? Let me in those battlegrounds, man. I hate battlegrounds. It's
Yeah.
just so good for gearing.
Yeah, so I mean, I literally did this yesterday. So it's great that we're talking about this today because I took my paladin, who hit 60 on Thursday, was item level
Oh, hang
135.
on. Before you
Yeah,
proceed, Venthier or Kyrian?
Venthyr, of
Hell
course.
yeah.
Venthyr, of course. But yeah, no, went Venthyr. So was like 130-ish as I came and hit 60. And basically did two mythic zeros, just the two for the weekly. So we did, I don't know what the weekly was this week. One was
Theater of Pain and Airs, maybe?
maybe, or was it the other?
Maybe the others.
Yeah. In any event, did two. Got a couple pieces out of that. So I will say I think I got like three or four pieces from that. And then did PvP for about 5 hours and went from 130 to 170 in that time, which was like, and that included like not having weapons. So I had to buy weapons.
Yeah.
Like I had zero trinkets, had to buy trinkets, and basically bought every other slot. Like other than I think I got a chest, some shoulders, and bracers out of doing those mythic zeros, and every other slot was honor gear essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
Which honor
and
gear you can upgrade, it depends on your renown level, so you do have to do campaign stuff in order to be able to upgrade those.
yep,
Um, but if you're just getting up to level 60 now on a character, there's renown catch up that you can get just like emblems of renown dropping from doing arenas and BGs and dungeons and raid bosses. Um, Drop rate's not high, but you can get them and it does give you catch up. So you can actually reach the point that like, yeah, that honor gear is actually like really legitimate gear
yeah. And we
for
were
the alt.
doing, and I was doing RBGs with like my friends. So like literally, if we won, it was like 1,000 to 1,200 honor, which
Yeah,
is essentially a piece of gear or upgrades to two pieces of gear, right? So it's like
weapons.
you are,
I found that
yeah,
out. I have been playing Ret in twos, and it's I bought a weapon. I'm like, I'm just gonna upgrade this weapon. It is it went 600, 1,200, 2,000, 2,500 for the honor upgrades for it. So it ramps
Jesus,
up pretty quickly. But honors, like, you can just grind more honor. It's not like conquest where conquest is capped. You always go and get more honor, and
hmm
it's yeah, go do PvP.
yeah, it's honestly like super consistent. Like I was able to like I needed, like I said, I needed weapons. So it's like, well, I buy the weapons first because I'm using a strength weapon trying to heal in battlegrounds. So like that was one of the first things I did.
Yep.
And from a I mean, depending on your class, like for paladins, like it's a lot of like crit verse gear. So it's actually pretty good, like in terms of like stats
Master's
you
best
potentially
stats,
want.
crit verse.
Yeah. So I mean like you end up getting gear that will be
Best
useful
stats for
even in PvE. So um so yeah, I think that like for me, actually going through it last night was so much fun because like it was like it also you get that dopamine hit because
Oh, like every time you get a piece,
you're
you're like,
like yeah
"Hey guys,
I
I just got 6 eye levels
yeah like
overall."
hey just got my shield so my health went from 2,000 or sorry 20,000 to 23,000 so I'm not gonna get one shot by a rogue anymore. Or it's like when we started the night it was literally like I'd walk into like a flag area.
I just die.
There would be a melee looking at me, and I would just fall over to, like, 3 games later, I'd be like, "I gained 20 item level, so let's, like I can actually spend a little time to cast." So, it was yeah, it was actually it was a ton of fun. It was weirdly I generally am not a PvP player, like, I
Yeah,
don't I can tell you that, like, my current honor level or whatever what is it? Yeah, your honor level is, like, in the hundreds, but the reason it's in the hundreds is because World Quest and
in
Legion
Legion,
give
yeah.
you honor right? So, like and I would do clears of the map in Legion, so, yeah, that's the reason I
Absolute
have all
madman.
the
Why would
honors.
you do that?
I have a problem with there being things on my map and not being able to check them
Do
off,
you
like
do you do World Quest sweeps in Shadowlands?
no, no, no. I've sort of that is off my brain. So I don't do world quest sweeps, but I do my callings in the mall every day,
Okay,
regardless.
okay.
But yeah, no longer. I think I've ridded
No
myself of
longer
the
clearing
need.
the map. At least you've
Yeah,
got that going for you.
exactly. But no, I mean it was extremely easy. It was very consistent and like it put me in a place where like I would feel comfortable going into like our normal Castle Nathria runs or even our heroic Castle Nathria runs, right? And not feel like
Yeah,
I'm legitimately being carried by the rest of my guildmates and like I'm the I'll say like I'm the asshole that shows up with like my 120 alts that just dinged and like, hey guys, can you take me to heroic? Where essentially I will die
yeah,
every boss, not because I fuck up mechanics, because I literally don't have enough health to survive. The damage that just goes out is unavoidable. So
yeah,
no,
yeah.
it was fun.
We've been doing guild RBGs to gear up our raid
Oh,
mains. Um,
nice.
because getting so there's this thing that goes on. Raiding in PvP in WoW is not like Elo. If you're familiar with that system from chess or something else, like Elo is a rating system that has like a small amount of rating inflation in it, but it's not intentional. It's just something that kind of happens as a byproduct of how the system is implemented. Rating in WoW has inflation built in. You will, if you are winning about 50% of your games, your rating will very slowly go up. And then there's the extra factors like what happens with Elo rating that also means your rating is going to end up going up over time. Um, so that is most extreme in rated battlegrounds. So it is
Oh yeah.
easiest to hit 1800, 2K, in rated battlegrounds if you have a group that can actually win games. Um, so and 1800 gets you 213 pieces. I want to say 2K gets you 220 pieces.
I think it's 220, yeah.
Um, which is like that's obviously not quite mythic eye level loot, but right now, if we kill 5 bosses this week, we are getting what 15 total pieces for the 26, 27 people on our raid team. Not a lot of loot.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Um, and yeah, it's kind of just so if you can get 1800 from RBGs on like actual mains, like characters you've been playing since the beginning of the expansion that you're rating mythic on, that's the kind of thing where like, oh, it's actually worth doing that because you can go and buy pieces and
Oh
slots that you need.
yeah. Yeah. No,
And some classes
it's
actually want the PvP on use trinket too. So
yeah,
badge.
that's also the other thing is, yeah, I think the trinkets are actually good now. Which is in the past, right? PvP trinkets have not been the best, right? They've been, I think, serviceable in certain tiers, but in general,
I know like
um,
in Nyalotha, mages wanted badge plus whatever the Ajara trinket was, font.
mhm.
But fire mage in Nyalotha was dumb and bad, and we won't talk about it anymore.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Um, but yeah, I think, I mean, on that, like, yeah, just going through it was very, very, it was fun. It was easy. I mean, like, I'll hit probably 1500 if I play some later tonight, do some RPGs later tonight. Just in terms of like being able to gear up, I'll have 3 pieces of gear to choose from, which is great. You know what I mean? In terms of
Yeah.
just your great vault, like you get so much honor for RBGs that like I actually think it's probably the easiest to fill those 3 slots than pretty much
Oh yeah.
any
Absolutely.
of the other options. Like
I
I
filled
guess
up all three slots doing RPGs with the guild from one evening RPG. Like
yeah,
you cannot do you could maybe do you could do an evening of a normal run and get all 3 slots in the raid row.
yeah,
Um there is no humanly possible way to get the entire row of the mythos done in one evening. Like that's
no,
10 keys.
yeah,
Like even if
yeah,
you're doing them really fast and you're doing 20 minutes per key. I guess 20 minutes per key, that's then 3 hours of keys. That's
yeah,
doable, but you're not doing 20-minute keys unless you overgear twos and you're just doing twos, in which case why are you doing that?
yeah, exactly. You're not getting meaningful loot out of this, which is like in PvP, you'll get meaningful loot. So
Fun fact though,
yeah.
actually not fun fact, very not fun at all fact. um when you go to upgrade your loot, it looks at your current rating, not your season high or your weekly high, which means that
Yes,
if you hit 1600 and then
you're not
drop
can't.
down, you can't upgrade your loot.
Yeah, I found one of my friends actually found that out
Yes,
yesterday.
one of the healers on their guild
Um,
found that out. They were like, they went over like 1600 or 1800, whatever threshold this week,
yeah,
and then dropped down below it and went to upgrade loot and were not able to upgrade the loot that they purchased.
God, that sucks.
So now
Yeah.
they gotta get back up there. But I mean,
Slowly climb that ladder, like you said. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think just in terms of like general gearing strategy, like it makes sense to like use what time you can to actually go into like I would say like the way I would look at it is like do as much PvP as you can. I particularly think rated battlegrounds are the easier and potentially less stressful way to do it. I mean, if you're into arenas, like that's also a viable option. Just twos and threes in arena as a healer for me because it's primarily what I would do.
arenas are a lot faster if you're solo, I would say,
Yeah,
because there's no like when you're doing RBGs, sometimes you try and join a group in LFG, you finally get a group, you do a single game, half the group leaves in the middle of the game, group's dead
yeah,
by the time you get out of the game, and you just spent like 40 minutes of your life to accomplish nothing, much like doing a 40-minute the other side that you've missed the timer on, and the warlock gets a piece that they then vendor.
yeah.
Um,
That's fair.
so arenas, it's a lot faster. Like you'll get in if your roommate rages and quits, then you just like find someone else, and it's over in a minute, and you can do it again. It's
Yeah,
going in, like, I think kind of the theme here is consistency is very,
Right.
very powerful. Very, very, very powerful in this
Right.
randomized system. So, that's, I think, probably the biggest takeaway from me from how this patch has gone so far is how powerful consistency in loot acquisition actually is. Because
Right.
the PvP vendor doesn't give the best loot raiders in terms of like eye level. Raid loot is better by a lot.
Mhm.
We're still all doing PvP because
Right.
we have the ability to consistently get the things that we need instead of getting, yet one more piece that we're not actually going to equip and can't actually trade. Or even if we can
Exactly.
equip it and can trade it, we may never or not in a reasonable time get traded a piece that we actually need. Or there may simply be no one that can trade us. Like, nobody can trade me a tank trinket except my co-tank.
Right.
So that's just
It
not
kind of
going to
yeah.
happen. It's never going to happen.
Right. And I think that I mean the consistency thing, um, it didn't matter as much in previous expansions because we got so much gear.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So I
and that's
mean,
another form of consistency. If you increase the rate at which something happens, it gets closer to the average case
right.
way faster. Like the people the if you look at the rate at which people actually got gear that they wanted in BFA, there were a lot fewer people that are like way far away from the average than there are right now. Just
Right.
because there are so few pieces that drop. Like sometimes you get really lucky. Like you were saying, you came out of week one Mythic Zeros and had basically full 184.
Yeah.
I came out of it and like still had like a bunch of upgrades I could get from heroic dungeons.
Yeah. And I would say like I didn't like that for me was not like a class stacked. I only ran with people who had leather. It was like I think it was
I
me and a
ran with
rogue were
people
the
that
only leather.
only ran with leatherwearers on my monk.
Oh yeah, no, I literally had it was me and a rogue, and then we had like a mage. I think our tank was a warrior, and one other DPS class. I can't remember. So it was only me and a rogue. So I had one other leatherware, but I think we traded maybe one
Yeah.
piece, and at the end of the week, I only needed a neck. I think I traded more loot away that week than I actually gained my. Or it was traded to me. So
Yeah. So
um
like sometimes you're like a nom and you high roll,
yeah,
and sometimes you're like me and you low roll. And with how low the rate of acquisition is right now, um, it takes a long time to recover from low rolling.
yeah, oh
And
yeah,
if you high roll early, like you're set for a while. Like maybe not literally Mythic Zero loot set, but that does mean that like if you high roll, in heroic week, a lot of people aren't even 220 yet. Like high rolling
yeah,
in heroic week actually is super good.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest issue with my monk now is that like I got such good gear, even from our heroic clears too. Like I got a Denathrius weapon, ended up with
I got that.
yeah,
One of
ended
the
up
other
with
piece
like
I
pretty
got.
pretty good, pretty good trinkets and um, so for me, like the first three bosses, while I'd love to kill them, like I needed like one piece, and our first like I got legs off of Shriekwing, right? He drops leather legs. I got the Huntsman dropped something too, and I got that on our first kill. And then like hungry, I didn't need something, so I just didn't like I wasn't in on there. So it's like it's kind of hurt me in terms of like I like to raid, but like
But
at
you
the
don't
same
get to
time, like
because there's not loot that you can get that's
yeah,
beneficial.
right. And it's better that like we put somebody else in my spot. Like other healers who need stuff like are better to be in the raid for me for those boss kills and for me to be there, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I mean it's I think that the consistency part um is like that's what I think makes like you said, it just makes PvP so much better this expansion because you can sort of target exactly what you want. And it's a very clear like the nice part too is like like when you like you mentioned like when you hit 1600 you have another upgrade, right? So you can literally plan for that. You can say like I am this much rating away, which means when I hit it I need to upgrade these five pieces, so I need this much currency to do it.
Yeah.
And you can literally be ready like the minute you hit 1600, tell your friends like hey, don't queue. You run to the vendor, upgrade the pieces you can, and then you're like all right, ready, we're go.
Yeah.
Like and I think
Like
that is
my
super
monk
useful.
is 1580 something right now in threes. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. When we hit 1600, I'm going to be like, okay, don't queue. Like if you guys queue, you're going in a 2v3. I'm going and upgrading my loot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's very much like, boom, you know exactly where you're about to get to. So yeah, I mean, that's nice. I think I don't know if I'd want like we've talked a lot about how great the PvP system is. I don't think the PvE system needs to be that way,
I don't
right?
think we need the vendor to be the sole source of loot.
Yeah.
I
I
will
think
agree to that. I do think we need a vendor as a form of very directed, like, bad luck protection.
yeah, I mean like they basically solved this problem in BC, right? With Sun
Badge
One.
gear.
I don't know I don't know if there was a vendor in Wrath, but yeah, there was a badge vendor. The badge vendor most people will reference it by, but like you essentially got a currency badges by doing PvE content, and you could turn those badges into pieces of gear. The piece of gear were not of like I think they might have been even lower than like the heroic version of raid loot at that time. So it was like that between dungeon and raid loot like level. And yeah, you used it to fill in holes. Like that
Yeah.
was the idea is that like you even if you got no loot for a week, you essentially would get enough currency to get a piece if you needed it to fill in like a slot that was low, right? So yeah, I mean, I think I am all for that. Like we've talked about that a little bit. Um, and they eventually, I think, expanded the system in Wrath. Actually, now that I think about it, where you could upgrade pieces with badges, so you could basically do the PvP portion of like an actual raid piece would drop with two upgrade slots in it, and you could upgrade it eye level wise by two. I don't know if I agree with that as much.
Yeah, I really like. I used PvP gear to fill a cloak, boots, and belt. I remember.
Mhm,
And so I had just, and I'm gonna go and buy a one-handed weapon so I can switch to dual wielding on my monk. Um, and
mhm,
that's all stuff that just hasn't dropped for me in PvE. I was using literally a blue World Quest cloak or heroic dungeon
mhm.
cloak. I don't remember which. It was eye level 170
Oh wow,
until I
yeah,
PvP'd. It just didn't drop. And cloak is even one of the things that everybody can trade, but it just hadn't dropped for me. So I went and PvP'd and I bought the piece. And that's the big thing I think that PvE gear needs right now is some additional form of consistency. They
yeah,
tried, and I would say a badge vendor, after having experienced it with PvP, is so infinitely better than what we had in BFA and Legion, where they just dropped more. Because you
yeah,
still sometimes got screwed. You're never gonna get screwed by a vendor. The vendor's always there. You're never gonna really get lucky from the vendor either,
right.
but you're never gonna get screwed by it, and that's what we need.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to play like sort of the opposite point of this is like it's kind of nice that there are two different ways to gear,
Yeah,
based on the content. Because the other thing with like PvE is when the vendor was there, there was always that sort of um, like there was less of an excitement if you bought a piece with badges and then like the next week got the upgrade in that slot, right? Like that's where it feels almost like the RNG hurts you.
yeah,
And
but I would take that every single day of the week over going into Mythic Raid with a blue.
I mean that's yeah. I see. I don't know if I would. I don't know. Well, not that I would. I mean, to be fair, I'm fine with vendors, but like thinking of the opposite viewpoint here is like you think about people who like may get slightly upset about that. Like maybe like I mean you potentially see it already with like Great Vault stuff where like people pick an item out of their Great Vault and then like that week they kill the boss at that difficulty and it's like you get the same item. You're just like, great, what am I gonna do with this? Like personally for
I
me, I'm like,
trade it.
awesome, I can trade it. Like
Yeah,
that's my mentality, right? But then other people who enjoy personal loot and think it's a great loot system are like, well, great, now I
I
gotta
mean,
trade this. This sucks. So
to the people that think personal loot is like a great loot system, sorry, but you're wrong, and I don't care.
yeah,
Personal loot is fine in pug content. It is absolute ass, and that's on this consistency thing. If you look back, let's go all the way back to vanilla loot, where you had master loot.
right.
Master loot is a form of additional consistency and control that allows you to go, okay, the boss dropped, it dropped a tier piece like a male tier piece. It dropped a sword. It dropped some cloth bracers and some leather legs. And we go, okay, this hunter, they haven't gotten loot in a while. We're gonna give them this male tier piece. This priest is still wearing really crappy bracers. They can have the cloth bracers. The leather legs, we don't have anybody that can use them. They gotta get sharded, and that's the really big downside of it. Is that sometimes you actually just don't have someone that can use things, especially now with smaller groups. Like you do a 5-man, and you get
Right.
cloth at the end, and you're four leather
Yeah.
wearers and a plate wearer. It's like, well, what are we supposed to do with this?
Right.
Um, but it is that additional level of consistency and control when used in an organized group. It doesn't work in pugs. Like we've got 10 years of people whining about ninja loot in pugs
Yeah,
to
but
show that it does not work in
it's
pugs.
yeah, I don't yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that's a different conversation because like I think like I'm all for master looting. Um and I think it can work. I think it's just a part of playing. Like to be fair, this is where like me being an old man comes into play where it's like the idea that you can go into a run with a bunch of people. Like there's a today if I queue for like a random heroic and I go in, I literally never interact with my group versus like if I did do a 5-man in classic, right, or vanilla,
You're like,
like
you
I had
need,
to trust the 4
you
other
need,
people. Like I need them as much as they need me. So
yeah,
like if I don't trust them and they don't trust me, we're gonna screw each other. And like that happened, but like in the large majority of cases, like people were at least nice to each other, right? Like
yeah,
there was that sort of like I got loot, do you need it? Not. And that it happens a little bit today. I think it happens a little bit more than it at the start of like this whole LFG type system, but like yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
Um it's just yeah, loot back then was I think loot back then was just as bad as it is today. It's just you're right. We had master looter where we could shift a loot to different people, right? Like
yeah.
that potentially
It's,
deserves it. Yeah.
I mean, really, my point from this, like, I mean, I think we have a couple points for this episode of the podcast. One is if you're leveling a new character, you should do PvP to get your gear.
100%. Yeah.
Like, you should PvP to get your initial set of gear. Possibly continue doing PvP if you want to push rating to get even better gear that can compete with PvE gear.
Right.
Then, point number two, or at least my point, is that PvE gear needs some kind of additional consistency. My personal preference would be for us to get a badge vendor. That solves a couple of problems where, like, instead of getting 35 anima, we get 35 badges, and then it's like, okay, well, I didn't get anything, but I'm 1/10 of the way to buying a piece off the vendor, or
Right.
whatever the
Exactly.
rate is. It's, as opposed to anima being basically worthless. Like, if I didn't want the portal to Orbos, I'd just go vendor the anima.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
I'm sorry.
but, I mean, and this is there are other ways to do it. They could go back to the Legion model of like just like shower you. That's my least favorite option. We all
Yes.
saw the
Yeah.
downsides of like sometimes you still get screwed. Um, and then there's the master loot option, which would work for guilds like mine, and
Hmm.
wouldn't work if you're not in that situation. So I don't think they're gonna do it. But um, yeah,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I would be fine if they didn't give us a vendor but gave us master loot
yeah.
for like mythic level
I mean,
content
if they
across the
said guild
board.
groups can use master loot, I would be like pretty happy with that.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be fine with being able to do that because like it's like I said, it sucks being a healer and getting a 220 weapon when like you see your rogues or like your boomkin wearing like 180, 190 staffs or
Mm-hmm.
like weapons. You're just like this is great for me because my monk will now heal more, but like I'm also going to sit for 2 bosses coming up and I'm gonna make zero loot. It's like zero very little use of this, right?
Yes,
Um, where like, yeah, I'm always of the opinion that like loot should go to people who like
aren't going to use
even
it.
classes. Yeah, we're gonna use it essentially, right? Or use it more than I would, right? Because I don't like we healed through this fine. Like I don't need the additional stats that come with this. I will eventually get what I want, right? So yeah, so I mean that's the other side of it.
Like
So
I'm playing my paladin on Kael'thas right now, and my
mhm.
paladin is not going to see play on any other boss this tier, likely. And I mean, I'm calling it now. I'm gonna get when we kill the boss tomorrow night. I'm gonna get something off the boss. I'm not gonna be able to trade it because my paladin is literally eye level 199.
God.
So,
That's gonna be the worst.
and I just gonna be like, sorry guys, I basically ate a piece of loot off of this boss and can do nothing about it. And this character is going back in the trash can, still farm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, that's always the yeah, that's always the fear when you do that or even just in general, like, the fear of, like, just getting something that, you that is, like, such a minor upgrade over what you have already that, like, it just yeah, I don't know, that's actually might be the worst thing, is a 220 weapon was still, like, a 40 level item upgrade for me. I was using a 184 staff at the time. However, I'm pretty sure I got, like, 207 I got something 207 or what key from a key, I think. And it was literally 3 item levels better than what I had equipped. So
Yeah,
it was like like while this is a slight upgrade, it's like an inconceivable, like in or not inconceivable, but like it's not a noticeable upgrade. And it would have been much better if I could give that away. And like
yeah.
those are situations that this whole like
That's actually
personal
so.
loot system like kill me.
Yeah, if they, yeah, that's they need to fix trading restrictions. That
Yeah.
is like the very minimum they could do, in my opinion, is to loosen trading restrictions.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how they would do it. Master loot is obviously one extreme. Basically, you can trade everything. But even if they
Yeah.
implemented master loot is just everything is tradable. Um, they need to do something about those trading restrictions.
Yeah.
It's total shit.
Yeah. It's real rough. So but yeah, I mean, I don't know if I mean, those points that you said are pretty much spot on with me. I think, consistency-wise, PvP makes the most sense to do today, and then, um, fill it in with other content you enjoy, right? Like, if you wanna do a couple Mythic Zeros, do a couple Mythic Zeros, then get back to PvP, like, after that sort of run. Um, and I think the campaign, honestly, is a really good way of, like, in downtime or when you don't have, like, a group to play with, to do, like, your PvP stuff progressing in the campaign will of course help fill in like your at least your questing items, right?
The campaign basically takes the spot of like world questing for BFA.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Which is I think I still have like two or three pieces from the campaign. So
I know I switched my monk to Kyrian this week. I'm redoing campaign stuff, and the reset on everything very jarring because
oh
it
yeah.
limits how high I can upgrade my honor gear, how high I can upgrade. I mean, obviously campaign gear. I don't care about campaign. Honor gear is very noticeable. Um, and reset on my travel network progress, reset
Oh
on
yeah.
soulbind progress, and like my mission table reset. So I'm no longer the OP Night Fae on the mission table. I can't do the level 60 missions. I still get level 60 missions though.
That's hilarious.
So I have a level 60 Soul Ash mission on my Kyrian mission table. My highest level follower is Meatball, who is level 25.
Yeah. I mean,
It's really
if
bad.
you're
It's totally impossible. I cannot do Soul Ash missions for the foreseeable future.
well, you're Kyrian, so you'll never be able
I
to do
mean,
them. Like
yes.
I have four level 30 Kyrian champions, and I cannot do the Soul Ash mission at level 60. Like,
Yeah.
I literally don't know what else like, I can't like, and every time I try and level my guys, the Soul Ash mission bumps itself up. So it's like, there is no way I will catch up, and I am resigned to the fact that I don't even try Soul Ash missions. My table today gets me fish, gets me meat, and gets me enchanting mats.
I'm just I stopped doing the
Like,
table on my paladin. Venthyr is pretty bad too. I think Venthyr and Kyrian are like maybe tied for the worst tables.
oh, awesome. Super
Um,
excited to not get extra
I
Soul
don't
Ash.
even go to the table on my paladin. It's
Oh
just
my
like it may
god.
as well not exist.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, so
But yeah,
but I think I'm sorry.
having a real great time losing all of my progress on that system because I decided to go Kyrian because weapon is better for people.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. That's fun. I didn't realize yeah, I haven't reset anything just yet. I probably won't if I care about the Night Fae campaign, 'cause it's the only one I don't have a level 60 of. I'll just level up Hunter or something
Just
and
go watch Novel.
yeah, I'll just watch not. Well, I mean, I already have to. We got a lore question this week,
We got a lore
so
question. I'm looking forward
and
to hearing
like
you explain that.
so I have to brush up, I will say,
Yeah,
um,
I'm
on that,
excited.
but yeah, I don't know if there's anything else on the gearing stuff. I mean, I think
I think
it's
we
definitely
covered
a
it.
difference. Yeah, it's definitely a difference, and to be fair, like I said, I'm not a huge PvP fan, but, like, it's been fun getting something out of it, and I think maybe that's, like, the very, like, selfish way to look at it, but, like,
Yeah.
getting something out of doing it is, like, makes PvP fun now. It's also fun
I think
that
it's a
I have a
combination of like I'm doing it in guild groups, which
yeah.
inherently just makes it more fun. It's no longer just doing random BGs. Um,
Mhm.
you know, when you go into RPGs with a guild group that is actively trying to like coordinate and win it, it's a lot different of an experience than doing for a rated battleground or a random battleground or joining a rated BG group with like one or two guildies.
Yeah. No, that's definitely the case. I mean, I've done it the same way, and I think it's been fun trying to figure out, like, also, like, battlegrounds we're bad at. Like, I have the Storm. We are O for the Sentry, and I have the Storm. For whatever reason, like, we just
I've only gotten it once and we lost horribly, so
yeah. Yeah, like, we played it I think we went, like we played, like, probably 15 or 20 games last night. We went, like, 15 and 5, so we had a really good time, but I think all 5 of our losses were, like actually, 4 of them were on I, and, like, 1 was on the mine shaft map. But,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
it was fun, like, the MOP one with the AB points one, we're undefeated, I love that map.
wait,
But
the uh old
it's, like,
market?
the market in the center, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one's really hit or miss for me.
Yeah, for whatever reason, we're really good at, like, node maps, my team or my friends,
Yeah,
so,
that one I
but
feel like
yeah.
is a lot easier if you have people in stealth on your team, which we did not. So
We had 2 rogues, so,
yeah, turns out
yeah.
having a rogue that can, or a couple of rogues, or a couple of rogues and some druids, it can sneak up on a point and just like take it before anybody can get there. Uh,
Yeah,
action.
makes it okay. Yeah, but that I mean, that was I had a bla it was funny to, like, start the night with, like, 0 gear and, like, slowly over the course of the night be like,
Yeah,
"Hey, I'm not dying." It's like, I can go to a point and help someone by myself without needing, like, 3 other people to come with me.
yeah.
'Cause they're like, "Oh, we can't send a Nom over there because he's just dead weight." So, no,
Yeah, you get to
it was
sit at
nice.
market,
Yeah, yeah, like,
and
you sit at market and hang out.
you get
Call
to sit at
inks.
market and press spinning crane kick to keep them from capping the point.
Yeah,
And then you're gonna
exactly.
die, and you're gonna walk back, and you do it again.
Exactly. So, no, it was fun, but, yeah, I think PvP's been fun, so it's nice that yeah, gearing wise, it makes the most sense to just ensure like we said, like ensure the upgrades, like ensure you get the gear for those slots that you need. So um so cool. Is it Q&A time?
I think it's Q&A time, which we got some real good ones today. Not
Yeah.
today is definitely a quality over quantity kind of day.
Yes, 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 yes. So, like we always do, Q&A, my favorite part of the show. You guys can ask any questions, anything at all. It doesn't always have to be it doesn't always have to be WoW related. We'll pretty much answer any question. I think we talked about this. There's been a single question in like the 5 or 6 months we've been doing this that we have not answered. So get them in here. You can talk through it. Make sure your names are easily readable because I will destroy them as trying to pronounce them. But yeah, let's get into questions. So first question of the night comes from Soji. Soji's actually been really good. They've had some really really thought provoking ones. But Soji hashtag delete SEF asks, let's assume for a moment that I'm secretly Ian and I kidnap you guys and point a Nerf gun at your faces. Quick, what would be your first idea to redesign Storm, Earth, and Fire for Windwalkers? And how would you implement Storm, Earth, and Fire for the other two monk specs? Then they ask, like, try and be creative, maybe the spell interaction or something instead of a generic plus X% healing for Mistweavers while Storm, Earth, and Fire is up or things like that. Um, Autonomous, if you want to take this one first, I have a pretty decent idea.
I have not a lot of decent ideas because I have now a fairly rational, I will say, hatred for pets, and I don't know how you do SEF without incorporating pets in some way and keeping the same spirit of the ability. Like you could change the ability so it no longer incorporates splitting into this fire elements
Hmm.
and all of that. But at that point, it's not the same ability. It's just the ability, just an ability with the same name. So I
Yeah.
am gonna say I don't have great ideas for how to redesign it for SCF or for Windwalker, and that's partially because I don't play a lot of Windwalker. I would say it would probably be something where the main effect of the cooldown actually just made the spec faster for seconds. So you press it, and I don't know, maybe you split it into three elements, and it cuts your GCD in by 2/3, and so you just are like literally like frantically pressing buttons, and every button you press goes off on a different one of your clones. So it's like
Okay.
first one you hit is the storm, second one you hit is earth, third one you hit is fire, storm, earth, fire, storm, earth, fire, and then you get to get extra angry when your fire one is like out of range of anything. You get stuck there, can't do damage.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For Windwalkers, I think so. The biggest issue bug wise has always been that it's like a pet based ability, right?
Yeah,
So I think pulling that out makes the most sense and just making it a, I think, yeah, quickening it makes sense. I think the other thing you could potentially do is, um, actually, that's really the only thing. My one is really my idea for Windwalker or Mistweaver, which I think is going to be really cool. So you ready for this one?
go for it. Do with it.
So I have an actual way to do this, and then I have like my meme. This would be funny way to do this. So,
Okay, hit me with the
uh,
memes first.
yeah. So the meme one first would essentially be that you would actually cast SEF outside of the raid,
Oh
okay, and it
no.
would change you into three smaller versions of the elements, right? You'd have your storm, your earth, and your fire. And when you were smaller, you were able to fit inside the pockets of the actual healers they were bringing to the raid.
Oh my
So you could
god.
hang out in like, the disc priest cloak, or like you could hang out with your shaman on like the top of their shield. Like they'd be have the little Captain America shield. You could
You
be like the little
basically turned
fire guy.
yourself into three enchants.
Well, no, you don't actually buff them. You just hang out and watch the fights. Like
Okay.
you get a chance to like
Cosmetic
spectate.
enchants.
Yeah, they're like cosmetic. So that way you're like still there in spirit. Maybe you can like talk and you'll
Literally there
yell
in
or something.
spirit.
Yeah. So that would be no, that would be my meme way to do it. No, but I mean Stormwrath and Fire for a Mistweaver would be so thinking about where it would fit in terms of like a talent tree ability. It's very much a power increase. It would probably fit in the same row that like the statues on. So like statue, refreshing Jadewind, and invoke Chi the Crane, right? And it would probably replace refreshing Jadewind in terms of like an AoE heal. So it'd be like our like AoE heal cooldown button, but I would probably change it in terms of like not making it sort of this longer 3-minute cooldown, but essentially be a like set of like spirits that you would summon that would basically buff very much like probably thunder focus but like would buff a specific spell around you, and it would essentially like rotate through. So like the idea would be is like you'd hit it, and if it was like the crane or the fire guy, it would be like your next melee attack does healing, right? And then like if it was like the storm guy, it would be, I don't even know what ability would be stormy in terms of Mistweavers.
That's part of the
But like it
problem.
would,
Mistweavers and
yeah,
Brewmasters don't really have
like
storm
storm and fire.
abilities.
Yeah,
Brewmaster
but
has
I mean,
fire. We've got Breath of Fire, but
yeah. It would
um
be tough, but that would be the idea for me is that would be like more of like a cycling buff where like you would very actually it would kind of work like Paladin's what's the Paladin Covenant? Yeah, the blessed, that's the, which one's that?
okay, yeah. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna save you a lot of heartache right now, and that idea is terrible.
Like it's my idea. You can't say that. I only have great ones.
It's
It's
actually
not.
probably not actually terrible as long as it's not like buffing other people in that cycle of
Yeah, no, the Paladin one just made me think of like the cycling part of it,
yeah,
but it's probably it wouldn't end up generally probably not being good because you'd have to like wait certain number of button pushes, and like
yeah.
if you had to use a specific one that you would just use, it would kind of be bad. But I mean, that would be potentially a way to infer like the idea of like what SCF is to Windwalkers and like bring it into Mistweaver on sort of a shorter cooldown. Because I think we already have longer cooldowns that fit what SCF is, which is like our Celestials, right? Um, so yeah,
For
but yeah, that's potentially.
Brewmaster, I would actually have it as a defensive cooldown, not as a offensive cooldown. Partially because as an offensive cooldown, if you're keeping the pet thing, it still doesn't solve the problem that Brewmaster has, which is a DPS cooldown to generate threat. Your pets generate the threat, and you don't get the
Not,
threat.
not you, yeah.
But um, Brewmaster has this like elusive, dodgy, like very tricksy kind of thing going on that SCF actually fits nicely into. So you can have, you could hit SCF and it would be, I don't know how you would trigger it, but you would basically be able to trigger it so that one of your other images would take a hit. Like
Yeah.
when you get hit, basically you would cycle through and split the damage up, um, functioning effectively as a damage reduction cooldown.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome. That would have been my idea for Brewmaster would be like almost like you'd summon 3 versions of yourself and like you'd either one of them would take the hit or like you'd share the damage
I
split
mean,
3 ways. So it's
honestly,
like
you could make it just actually trees
that's
from
true too.
a boomkin, and I would absolutely use that talent because trees are amazing.
Yeah.
Trees and keys, like always use trees and keys. Uh, like obviously ask your tank first, I guess. Some people some people hate it, but
Yeah.
trees are amazing. So
That's awesome.
Kate makes the
Um,
point that in some cases the threat that Angry Dave generates would be a problem if it were attributed to the Brewmaster because of how much damage it can do. Like I did almost 7k DPS in my opener on Shriekwing
oh
this week
Jesus.
because of these out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because I purified a lot of damage, and I did not sustain that amount. Like once Niazao went away, I was toast.
Yeah,
My
you're
damage
bottom of the barrel.
trash, but it does a lot of damage. It's kind of like Ashen Hallow, for Venthyr protection paladins, where like you just cannot keep threat off of a Venthyr protection paladin. They will rip
Gotcha.
threat off of you.
That's
Um,
funny.
so that would definitely be problematic, but that's more of a like a specific Angry Dave problem more than a like actual problem with giving brewmasters DPS CDs.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean that would I mean, yeah, ICF is a defensive, I think makes sense for brews. And then yeah, Mistweavers, I feel like the cycling might be the best way to handle it. Just because if not, it would just be another generic, not generic, but another like 3 minute cooldown you'd hit when you need healing. And yeah. I mean maybe they could do maybe it could be like a yeah, no. I think I like my idea of like the cycling. So cool. So Soji, thank you very much for the question. You're very consistent, so keep them coming. All right. So now the big question, the second question of the day, which actually comes from Kate. I see Kate's in the chat. Thanks, Kate. Your name's really easy to say, so thank you for that. I don't have to mess that up. Um, Kate asks, and this is actually specific to me. So
I saw
they
exciting.
they titled it "Lore by Anomoly," and they ask, "How did the Mana Storms get to the Shadowlands?" So number one, I know who the Mana Storms are. It's Milton and Maleficent, and I know they're in the other side.
The other
So
side.
the other side, yeah. So my, uh, so when I was reviewing this, I was thinking, well, why would they be there, right? And my thought was that because they're in like the tech area, like there's weirdly in the other side, like gnome and like mechagons type stuff. So
Yeah.
first of all, I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why in the other side you go to different realms. That's confusing to me. So I had to reference that in my head, and I really just thought it was one Swamdi sending us back to like visions of the past, sort of like the Christmas story where you go to like past, present, future.
Oh,
So I thought it was a little
so
bit
this is
like that.
visions of Nizoth, but this time instead of Nizoth, it's Bob Salami.
Yeah, Bon Swamdi. And the Mana Storms are there because they are trying to create a weapon that will eventually destroy Azeroth. So that was my thought. I did look this up, and I do know
Post
why
review.
they're there, but I also realized that that was very off. But there's a couple other things I want to talk about in this where I was also off. So the other thing is that the Mana Storms, as you call them, for the since they introduced Maleficent, whatever her name is, I thought they were brother and sister.
That would be
So
very creepy if they were brother and sister.
So I was very confused. I started to read about the lore of the Mana Storms, of what was going on.
Oh my god.
Uh, so that was interesting, um, to know that they are not,
Kate,
they're
the
considered
answer
a
is
couple.
no. Anam did not read any of the dialogue in The Violet Hold.
No, I uh, yeah, so, um but yeah, so no, she comes out and she's, like, angry at him, like a sister would be angry at her in Violet Hold, right? Isn't that what
There's more
happens?
dialogue to it.
Oh, I don't really read, I just know she
That
comes out and
that
she gets
that's
angry.
that that is the point that they were making.
Okay, well, brother and sister fight. Anyway, so that was mind-blowing. I had to, like, rethink the rest of it because then I'm like, well, like, now why would they be creating a weapon to,
So
like,
hang on, hang on. Let's establish this. So they are not brother and sister. What actually is their relationship?
they're like married, right?
Yeah. As far as
Yeah,
I know.
they're like
I
they're
I
husband
didn't
and
look
wife.
up the answer to this. I'm getting the answer from you.
Yeah, no, they're married. So yeah, so their husband and wife are like like on Facebook, it's complicated, I feel like
It's
they're together.
complicated, but the marriage license is signed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that is something I found out, which I thought was very cool. And then so now why they're actually in Shadowlands. So number one, I still don't know what the other side is, why there's different areas. I didn't get that far in my exploration, just because I kind of wanted to focus just on who the Mana Storms were, and maybe I'll figure out what else is happening there once. But they're there because Maleficent made a deal with Buon Samdi to get his mojo because she wants to use his mojo in some sort of experiment. And then Millhouse finds out about it and they get angry at each other. But what actually is happening is Millhouse finds out that Buon Samdi is just giving the mojo to Maleficent so Maleficent can resurrect Bonsomdi and his mojo. And so at the end of it, they end up giving the mojo back and stopping the experiments, and that's why they leave. Hold on, I actually have the Wowpedia page up. Let me just double check. Where is it?
So
Right, that's
while
it.
he's pulling that up,
Yeah,
um,
that's exactly right.
the if you've listened to the dialogue from the fight, and you really cannot get this if you're doing it on like hero, you have to do a key where they live long enough in order to get all of the dialogue from them. Both of them have made independent deals with Buon Samdi that the other one didn't know about. They don't explain what the deal is for, in the dungeon at least, but they do explain that they are both getting mojo from Buon Samdi, and when you defeat them, they go off together, apparently reconciled, and the mojo that they had is returned to. We're trying to return it to Buon Samdi. We are collecting it to Buon Samdi, which is what we do during the Muazala fight.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense than my whole weapon thing. Because well, she like they
I mean,
had like
I have
crystals
no idea
and
what the mojo was for. It's probably for like, let's be real. That's probably for a weapon.
yeah, but
This is the
yeah.
World of Warcraft after all.
But no, so now I'm actually reading the question. How did they get there? Well, I guess I explained that because I thought it was like a vision of the Mana Storm somehow building a weapon to destroy Azeroth, and like each one of the parts of the other
There's
side are
like
different
portals
visions.
around, right?
I don't know. Like I don't know
Well,
what the little
you've done the other side, right?
yeah, but and you go through the little portals. I thought they
Yes,
were
yeah,
visions. I didn't really think they were
yeah.
like
I don't know.
actual.
I don't know. Like they're not actual portals in game, like in technical terms.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but like you like go through the white mist that's
this
in
is
like
one
Dark
thing I
Souls.
have no idea whether they're supposed
Yeah,
to be visions or portal. I mean, I assume they're supposed to actually be portals, but like
that's
I
why I
have
thought it
no
was like
idea
an
if the
alternate
Millhouses are
reality, right?
actually in the Shadowlands, or if we are leaving the Shadowlands to go and get the Mojo back from them, or if we're staying in the Shadowlands and they are in the Shadowlands, maybe they died. Did they die?
I no.
Okay.
I don't think I thought it was I didn't think they were real. Like, I thought it was just like a vision. Like, I just thought it was like, "Hey, we're in, like, dream world right now." Like,
I
so
mean, yeah, like Kate makes a point. Hakar is very clearly in the Shadowlands, because Hakar is now dead. What, twice over in
yeah.
in Azeroth. So Hakar is in the Shadowlands,
Wait,
but
is
I'm not sure if Millhouse and Maleficent are in the Shadowlands because they died, or if they're in there because of their deal with Bonsomni.
Wait, do we kill Hakar?
In the Did you at least read the name on the boss nameplate?
No, I thought it was just a big serpent god. Okay, cool.
It's literally the vanilla model spruced up a little bit.
I should have picked up on that. All right. Well, as you can
I
tell,
mean,
I don't
in
actually
fairness to
pay
you,
attention.
they do reuse models. There's at least a couple different models that use their low poly version of the Lady Vash kind of thing. They
Yeah.
just like
Well,
random Naga number 237.
I should have probably known that. But yeah. So I mean, I think the biggest thing to come out of this for me is really that I thought the Mana Storms have been brother and sister since the first introduction of Maleficent. Is that how you say her
Yeah,
name?
Maleficent.
Maleficent. Yeah, so like when I read the Wowpedia thing, it's like, while the Mana Storms affirm their love towards one another, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell is going on here? I'm like, that's a little weird brother and sister stuff, Blizzard. Like, come on now. And then then of course I had to go back and read about all Mill Health stuff, and I'm like, oh,
I
oh,
mean,
buds.
like this is a really Amerocentric thing or like Eurocentric thing I'm about to say, but there are basically two situations where people have like the same last name, right? In American media, they're brother
Yeah,
and sister or they're married.
right.
Yeah,
I don't
and
think
you
of
just assume
like,
they were brother and sister because that's like
well, like, and very rarely I feel like in
I'm
WoW.
not to be clear, I'm not faulting you for that. I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah, and in most of WoW, there have not been many like
Right,
wife and
like
husband or
Varian.
like partner
Yeah,
like couples that have like been in lore, right?
there's a lot of
Together.
things like I guess most of the siblings that I can think of in WoW are uh like same gender. So there's like um Illidan Malfurion Stormrage and doing
Okay.
Varian Rin. Actually, is that father son?
That's
I don't
father son.
remember.
That's fine.
That's father son.
I know the blonde kid's the kid, and the other dude, the black haired dude, is the
Yeah,
dude, the
okay.
dad.
I've not actually played Alliance since Species. I don't know. Um and um
Who are the Whisper Winds? Kate just says Whisper Winds.
yeah,
Who are,
I'm gonna let you Google it.
are they important characters?
Rhonda Whisperin.
Oh, I thought they were just. Oh, they have a last name?
It's okay.
Because like, isn't so it's like Tyrande, Illyria, and
Illyria is
Sylvanas.
not related. No. Okay, so there's Illyria and wait, yeah.
I thought they were the three
So
sisters.
Sylvanas Windrunner.
A Windrunner.
I'm sorry, there's only so many elf motifs that they use in this game.
God. All right. Well, in any event, we're getting slightly off the lore topic and going into the fact that Anam knows very little about how this game works
You've
story
been
wise.
playing this game for a long time to still know this little about
Look,
it.
so
I
I
mean,
know I
in
know so
fairness,
much about War 3. I know so much about War
yeah.
3. There's been a lot that's happened since
But
Warcraft 3 in this
yeah.
game. Like the Mana Storm show up. I think they're brother and sister literally since Cataclysm or whatever Maleficent came in. That still blew my mind, dude. Like when I read that line, I was like, I literally immediately started talking to my friends and they were like, "You're an idiot." So like, I guess maybe I am an idiot because I didn't pick up on it, but I thought they were brother and sister.
The dialogue from Violet Hold very strongly
I should
implies a
look that
lover's
up.
quarrel.
I should actually look that up, to be fair. Uh, I'll look up the dialogue from that fight at some point and let you know. Which Violet Hold? Was it the
Legion 1,
Legion one? The Legion one. Okay.
where
Okay.
Maleficent is one of the bosses. Which,
Gotcha.
fun fact, you can activate hard mode on that boss by using the toy that turns you into Millhouse Manastorm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what you do, right? That's how you do the hard mode for her. I've done that before.
Yep.
But huh. I didn't realize that well, Hey, look, every day you get smarter, Emerson. Every
Every
day you
day you
learn
learn
something.
something new.
Every day. So, Kate, thank you for the question. If you have more lore questions, I'm more than happy to explain to you how this game works. I'm basically like a historian on WoW lore. Um, so yeah, as you can tell, I'm actually gonna look up the portals on the other side and see what the hell they are. So, uh, all right, and then Kate also has a follow up, which I feel like I don't know. So unfortunately, I don't know Kate from. I'm assuming from Peak, right?
Yeah,
But they
they
also
hang out
ask.
in Brewmaster channels.
Well, I was gonna say that I'm assuming they're a brewmaster because the follow up to this question is also why is the other side such a cursed
Oh,
hellhole?
you want a fucking list?
No, I think it's great.
Yeah,
I
you're a
love it in
healer.
there. I love it in there.
All right, all right. Let me count the ways in which that instant actually blows. Muazola no longer counts because he actually works now. So I will give
All fixed.
Muazola a pass. The boss of the Ardenweald Wing has that stupid debuff you gotta pass around. It's really awkward to pass around. And just rip not know about the debuff. Giving me
Uh,
that look like you don't know about the debuff.
That's
So
I do know. That's the one that stacks up. I do know about that
yeah,
debuff. I do
okay,
know
yeah.
about that debuff. Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. But I just feel through it because I'm an amazing healer.
yeah. Um, so that one's really annoying. If you go in there with a melee, it's very easy for like so many melee. You just tell them like, okay, I'm gonna pass off my debuff to this ranged person, and then you move over to where the ranged person is, so it passes off to them, and the melee just follows the boss. That of course followed you. So the range still aren't the closest person to you, and it goes back to the melee, and the melee dies, and they go, "What the fuck, tank? I thought you were passing it to the ranged."
Okay, that'd
Then,
be slightly annoying. That'd be slightly annoying.
then there's actually just like a lot of casters in that dungeon, like a large quantity of casters.
The
They're
Hakar one does have a
very,
lot. Yeah.
very
Hmm.
also melee magic swings. Oh, there's
That's not. I mean, just stagger it. That's
like
what it's there for, right?
no, that's not. Um, then there's Hikar. Have you done tyrannical Hikar?
Not on a key that would actually impact me. So
That boss just like goes to shit
I
really
can.
fast if anybody doesn't turn and immediately delete the ads.
All right, I'll give you Hakar can be a bit of a struggle. I will say. Okay,
Okay,
that's fair.
now we got to talk about the mana storms.
Yeah, the brother and
Um,
sister team.
yes. So the mana storms, in particular, I'm going to complain about Maleficent, who does the Saw Blade thing on the tank.
Uh huh. Yep.
It applies a stacking bleed. It
Okay.
ignores armor because that's how bleeds work.
Yep. Yep. As they do.
Basically ignores stagger. And it does enough damage that it's just going to delete your Celestial Brew and then you after.
Gotcha.
And the way you deal with it is you stun her with the other mechanic that comes out. Except the stun
Okay.
only comes out like one in every four Saw casts.
Gotcha. Oh,
Um,
that's what you use the circle for. Right. Right.
yes,
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
yes.
On the same page now.
Um, and that's actually like low key. That kind of bullshit is part of the reason I went Kyrie.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you could at least clear one set, or at least
Yeah,
if you get in trouble. Yeah.
I mean it's basically like a 100% DR on one of them.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Kate's saying bleed is like 90% uptime, so file is worthless. Bleed is like 90% uptime, but if your options are press dampen harm, press fort brew, you can't press zen med because she continues auto attacking you. But you can press zen med or dampen harm. File basically is another dampen harm there. So it's not like, oh my god, I win the fight kind of levels of good, but it is still actually very good there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
Um,
can. I mean, I guess as a healer, it's not that bad, but I can see. I mean, kind of. I mean, it feels. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Bruce. You guys kind of complain about a lot of stuff. I feel like,
I mean, okay,
you know.
Bruce gone from being like the tankiest, easiest tank in the game, being like one
I mean,
of the worst. So
I killed Mythic N'Zoth on a Brewmaster.
yeah, it can't be that hard.
It's obviously, obviously. Considering
Now
I
you're
don't know
playing a
half
much
what
harder
happened.
class. You're playing Mistweaver. You gotta really show what you can do to get a raid spot.
Or just wait till every other healer leaves my guild, and then of course I will have a raid spot. It'll be great.
Wow, that sounds like I'm not gonna
or
touch that.
or what I can do is just level my paladin.
As one does.
As one does, as one does in these trying times. No, yeah, I mean that sounds, to be fair, completely awful. Like bleeds, I think in general are just bad tank mechanics, but
Yeah.
that sucks a lot worse for Bruce. So yeah, so Kate, thanks for the questions. If you have any other lore questions that you need answered by the premier lore historian of World of Warcraft, Anomoly, and his friend Emallson here to help, correct the minor mistakes I made, the
Cool,
minor
cool, cool.
ones. Yeah, we're more than happy to answer them. But yeah, thank you for both questions. And yeah, thanks Soji for the other one. That was fun. But yeah, Q&A time is now over. But yeah, if there's any other question you guys want us answered, like I said, we'll answer pretty much anything. And you'll even get to hear how I have ignored the lore for the past 15 years in this game. Um, it'll be real exciting if you ask me about old lore because I don't know what happened in classic.
I
That's
mean,
for sure.
nobody knows what happened in Classic. Have you seen the Classic forums? Nobody knows what
No,
happened in Classic. People go back and play Classic and they're like, this isn't what happened, and it's like literally what happened.
no, I don't. I don't know. Like, I don't know why Ragnaros was there. I
Ragnaros
don't
was
know
there
why.
because Ragnaros was fucking cool. Therefore, he was there.
Yeah,
There was a
but I mean,
reason
like,
for it
there's that.
beyond that, but that's actually what.
Yeah, but then there's the whole like Anixia thing where like she was a person and then not a person, and like,
She was always not the person. She was a dragon.
yeah, but we took their powers, right?
After it, after way after Classic.
That was Cataclysm. That was
Yes.
Deathwing, right?
Yeah.
They did the whole like, but your powers combined, they Captain Planeted them, right? Essentially.
Yeah, they turned
Yeah.
Thrall into Captain Planet, and then Captain Planet killed Deathwing while we watched.
Yeah, with the little Captain Planet star or circle disc thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I know the lore. I know the lore. But yeah, no, classic would be fun to potentially look at. No, it wouldn't. It'd be super complicated. I think I agree with Kate. We need like simple things, like that the Mana Storms are not brother and sister; they're actually husband and wife. Like, let's keep it at a level that maybe I understand.
In any case, before we get sidetracked talking about more lore shenanigans, I think we should wrap it up for today.
Probably, probably.
So, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support it and all the other work that we do over on the Peak of Serenity, whether it's, doing questions and answering in the questions channels in Peak, writing guides, or, you know, this podcast, you can do that over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. As always, we really appreciate your support. And I want to say thank you all, everybody that's come and watched the show live. Hi, Kate, and a couple other people that have popped in throughout it. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.